YouTube Ozick the Goat House is back with bold predictions for NFL Week 14 sent in by you guys through our Twitter. If you want to get involved in videos like this, if you want extra NFL content, updates on the channel, follow that Twitter. It's on the screen. There's also a link down below, description, comments. It's a must follow. If you don't have a Twitter, go ahead and make one. Much appreciated, and I think it'll be worth it. We have an Instagram, podcast, Patreon link down below for those as well. The Patreon is extra NFL and college football content, so check it out. If you're new, please subscribe. Full NFL coverage, weekly power rankings, picks, score predictions, mock drafts, a lot more going on even in the offseason, full coverage. So, yeah, go ahead and subscribe, smash that like button. Underneath me, you see the Sided app, pretty cool app. Download it, links down below for that. You talk football, debate football, you can earn points and win Amazon gift cards. Pretty cool app there. Let's go on to the bold predictions. The first one comes from Patrick Tibbetts on Twitter. Giants continue to dominate as Daniel Jones runs for more yards than Kyler Murray and picks up the win. Yeah, I thought the Daniel Jones versus Kyler Murray rushing battle was kind of interesting here. Daniel Jones is a underrated runner. Pretty sneaky runner with the read option. He runs the read option pretty well, and he can take off faster than some would think. Look at Daniel Jones playing the Cardinals defense, Kyler Murray playing the Giants defense. The Giants have the better defense, and they seem to have some really good game plans. They game plan for Russell Wilson, very well last week. I know Kyler's going to run a little more than Russell Wilson, but in general, they game plan for him pretty well. I still think this is pretty hot because, a few things need to happen here. Daniel Jones needs to run for more than Kyler Murray. And they got to win. I think it's about a 50-50 game. I think it's pretty realistic at the same time. It's pretty hot, though. I think Kyler Murray can start to pick it up. They're going to have to win. It feels like a must-win situation for Murray and the Cardinals. So I'm thinking they pick it up a little bit. So it's a little bold here, Next one, we got from Eric Kion. Tom Brady has a terrible game, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Vikings win by 14+. I think this is pretty... we don't have to be specific here. For this to happen, doesn't have to be exactly that 0 touchdowns, 3. That would obviously be pretty piping. But a bad game with 0 touchdowns, a couple interceptions or so, lose by 14. I still think that's pretty piping. This is their chance. They match up very well against this Vikings team. It's an old school type defense. Tom Brady's very familiar playing against. They are off the bye week. It's time to kick it into gear for them. I think Tom Brady has a pretty good game. Worse, I guess it's possible he can have an average game. I just don't think I don't see him having a terrible game. And I think they kind of get on track. I don't want to say back on track. I mean, they did win some big games early in the year, but I think they kind of get on track to where they need to be based on the talent on that roster. I think the Vikings are kind of hot right now. They're a pretty solid team. I just think it's a good matchup for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. So this would be shocking if it happened. If something like this happened, I'd kind of go cold on Tom Brady and the Bucs, and I'd become kind of high on the Vikings if something like that happened. So we'll see. Tyler Hebb, Bevel returns to Wisconsin. Remember, he coached with the Packers. Pretty sure he went to school in Wisconsin as well, at Wisconsin. Assistant coach with the Packers. So Bevel returns to Wisconsin, gets the win against the Packers with Stafford throwing over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, keeping the Lions' playoffs hopes alive. Stafford against a very good Bears defense last week threw for just over 400 yards. Very impressive outing for him. Packers defense, maybe not as good as the Bears defense, so I guess it's possible. Back-to-back games, I'm not. This is tough. I'm gonna say hot. I'm gonna say it's pretty hot to go back-to-back games, but they're going to be playing keep up with the Packers, so they're gonna be throwing a lot. They also got to win though, so a lot has to happen here. I think it's pretty hot, but they could do it. They can do it. If they do beat the Packers though, I don't know if it'll be. I could see Stafford throwing for around 400 yards, and he almost did it last week and still lost to the Bears. So I can see him doing that and still losing. I think the key, if we fast forward and we say the Lions beat the Packers, what happened? I have to predict what happened. How did they beat them? I didn't watch any of the game. I woke up after the fact. You're telling me the Lions beat them. I'm saying they came out, they ran the ball and ran the clock, because you can run pretty well against the Packers, but they drained the clock so the Packers couldn't really get in their groove offensively. That would be the more likely reason that the Lions beat the Packers. Kyler Because like I said, Stafford could do this. It's realistic, but they could still lose the game. They almost lost the Bears while here. That's pretty wild to think about. If you were to say, I mean, they end up winning, but if you would have told me that they lost, Stafford threw for 400 yards in the Bears and they barely won the game, it took a strip sack towards the end, I'll tell you, you're crazy, really. So that was pretty wild. We'll see if he can do it again. Next, Peter Barron. Bills and Steelers combined for less than 100 total rushing yards. So combining the two teams, rushing yards less than 100. It's interesting because these are two teams that haven't really been able to get the run game going. The Bills ran pretty well against the Chargers. They're mainly a pass-first team, so it's kind of understandable, but you do wish the run game would get going a little more. Steelers, I think that's a big problem right now. They can't get the run game going. Makes it tougher on the pass game. Makes it a lot tougher. Makes it a lot tougher on the offense in general. It's a pass league, but running is still very important because it keeps defense on their toes. It opens things up it makes the passing game easier, plain and simple. And you can wear the defense out. You can control the time of possession. James Conner's coming back. I think 100's too low of an over/under. I'm gonna say it's actually piping. Maybe that's bold of me to say piping because it's possible they can run for 50 yards apiece. I think that's pretty low. I think James Conner gets going in this game. Nothing crazy, but I think he gets going. I think throwing in Josh Allen and Josh Allen's running ability, I think they got to combine for more than 100 yards. It'd be pretty bad if they don't. So I think that's pretty piping. I'd say look for some of these guys to get going running the ball compared to the last few weeks. Brendan Scranton, the Jets find another spectacular way to lose a close game against Seattle. I'm actually going to say piping because I think Seattle just blows them out and then they dominate them. That's my pick. So unless you can, maybe that's spectacular just to get dominated completely. I don't know if that's really spectacular enough for the Jets. I think he means kind of just blowing it, choking it, throwing it at the end. I don't think it's going to come down to that. I think Seattle will get going on offense, unlike last week. I think it's a totally different matchup. So I think it'll be pretty straightforward. Look at the Seahawks. We view them as a very good contending team, a very good offense. The Jets, we view them as the worst team in football. Seattle dominates the Jets. I think that's pretty straightforward stuff. That's what should happen. If it ends up close or somehow Seattle loses, we got big problems in Seattle. Big problems. Huge problems. Tua time. Dolphins defense picks off Mahomes twice and only allows one passing touchdown in a route to upset win. Is a lot. This I like all of it as a whole. I think that's pretty piping. There's a lot has to happen. The Dolphins have to win. They also have to pick off Mahomes twice. But I like splitting these up here. Pick off Mahomes twice. The Dolphins are pretty damn good in coverage. They can beat teams that want to throw the ball. They're weak just kind of run the ball. So they can play pretty well in coverage. I still think picking him off twice, I almost want to put Hot up there, but I'm pretty confident he's not going to throw 2 interceptions. He could very well. If it was one, I think that's pretty realistic, actually. So you go from one end to another there. Only allow one passing touchdown. I think it's hot. At the same time, I think it's pretty realistic. The Dolphins or the Chiefs could look to run the ball more because they know you can game plan. You could see we need to get the run game going. The Dolphins don't really stop the run at that high of a level compared to the rest of their defense. So that's pretty possible. And again, the Dolphins play pretty good pass coverage, very good in the secondary, some playmakers back there. For the Dolphins to win the game, I think it's pretty hot. I talked about in the other videos when I first saw that matchup. I'm thinking the Dolphins could win this game because this is their strength here. This is their strength covering the pass. But then I kind of look at it, and the Chiefs, they haven't really been running, but that doesn't mean they can't run the ball. So I think they open things up with the run game. Dolphins also like to blitz a lot. Like I said, they can get pressure really any way. They don't need the blitz to get pressure, but they like to blitz, and blitzing against Mahomes is just a big no. It's just a big don't do it. He almost becomes better when you blitz him. It's crazy. So there's some factors that really point towards the Chiefs, on top of the Chiefs being the more experienced and better team at the moment. Dolphins are pretty sneaky though. It's a team that might be a team that plays better against better teams. It's a pretty tough game plan for the better teams, so they could win the game there. Should be an interesting one. Next, Kurt Wall. KC has a meatball game and loses to Miami by double digits. I just like that he used the meatball game. I think this is pretty piping. They could lose, not by double digits. I just don't really see that. But, yeah, I don't know where we came up with a meatball game or meatball yeah, I don't know where we came up with it. We just started saying that this year in picks videos, so I thought it was funny that he used that there. Somebody plays a bad game, they had a meatball game. Or if the Chiefs, yeah, they Miami, when they played the Broncos, they had a meatball game. I don't know where we come up with this stuff sometimes, but we're rolling with it. Next from Matt, Taysom Hill gets both 100-plus rushing and 100-plus passing. I think we had something similar to this last week. I'm gonna say it's piping. I don't see the 100 yards rushing part. Hill's capable of doing that. I just don't think it happens. He's gonna get over 100 yards passing. I'm pretty confident in that. The rushing part, though, I mean, he can have some nice runs. He can punch in a touchdown or two. 100 yards rushing, though. We're reaching a little bit. Eagles, actually, they're pretty solid stopping the run. They got a pretty good D-line. They're not going to let teams break big runs or anything. Hill could have one or two here, big ones. But 100 yards rushing, I don't know. I think a couple touchdowns more likely, actually. So I think that's pretty piping. And then we got from Rhett B12, the head coach that loses the Bengals and Cowboys game is fired. So, yeah, Zach Taylor coaching the Bengals, going against the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, they both could be on the hot seat based on how they played this year. The Bengals, they're still in that rebuild process. Joe Burrow went down. Cowboys just hired McCarthy, this year. And Kellen Moore might be taking over more of the play calling duties, but I think McCarthy's, the mind-blowing stuff, some of the decisions on when to go for it from your own end, when to fake the punt. That might be more on McCarthy. When to call time, game management stuff. That's more on McCarthy, but the actual play calling on Kellen Moore. I think this is pretty piping. I just don't think it happens. They could be fired at the end of the year. I don't think McCarthy gets fired. You see how attached Jerry Jones was to Jason Garrett. Took forever to kind of admit that he was wrong on that. I don't know if it's really admitting he's wrong. I think some people put it that way. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think it's just he kind of felt that this was going to be the year. They're building up chemistry. This was going to be the year. It lasted too long. And then you kind of bring up the discussion that everyone forgets, who are we going to get? I think that more applies to GMs. You can't just fire your GM because there's so many mysteries on how guys would draft and what's their vision on on all that, and how good are they at evaluating the talent. But yeah, I think they give McCarthy more of a shot. Kellen Moore could be more on the hot seat, I guess, for his duties. What he does in a game. Taylor could be fired. It's a toss-up one. I don't think it'll be after this game. If he was fired, I think it'll be at the end of the year. It's tough because they know they're still in the rebuild process, and they view him as maybe that rebuild process. And they're not like stage one of rebuild. They're coming along. They're going to expect to win ball games next year. That's for sure. But they know they still need offensive line. They need their quarterback healthy. They need Joe Mixon healthy. They need all of this. So I would say he's unlikely to even get fired at the end of the year. But I don't see any of this after this game. The Bengals lose, it'd be because, we're injured. Joe Burrow's not playing. The Cowboys lose, it's because we're injured. No Dak Prescott, no a couple of those offensive linemen as well. And the defense is still more, even though the offensive decision-making and play calling has been questionable, it's still been the defense that's at fault there, for the Cowboys for the most part. So that's the interesting thing. But yeah, it's always interesting talking about these head coaching firings, GMs. We're going to see a lot of it. The second the season ends, the regular season ends, we see that Monday rolls around, Monday and Tuesday, we see a bunch of coaches fired. So we'll have you covered for that. It's always an interesting day for, I guess, I would say wrong reasons, but sometimes right. Sometimes fan bases get definitely happy that some their coach got let go. They're in the market for a new guy. It's always tough to find the new guy, though, that's a sure thing. They're never a sure thing. I guess that's a thing, but there are some top candidates there. So we'll talk about that when the time is right, and maybe some guys will be fired. See Greg Williams, defensive coordinator, Jets, fired last week after last week's games. So some more could happen along the way. I think we're at the point where, for these teams, we might as well just finish the season. Is it really going to change? Do we even need change right now? So I think that brings that up. But yeah. That will do it for the bold predictions for Week 14. Thanks for playing along. If you're not following our Twitter, you're missing out on a lot there, so go ahead and check that out. Link down below. Please smash the like button, subscribe, turn notifications on. All that will be much appreciated. That's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.